Wow, isn't that incredible? If you want to find out why and what exactly went wrong with this Juniper restyle, then this is definitely the video for you, because we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive and find out exactly whether I made the mistakes or whether it's just a simple case of bad luck. There's definitely an answer to this, and we'll be exploring that in detail. And unfortunately, we're also going to be covering the single biggest blunder I continue to make, despite me giving videos and warnings and having reminders that I keep going on and on about during my videos, because these Scots pines have both suffered from the same, dare I use the word, neglect that happened last year and indeed the year before. What's the solution? And what exactly can I do to try and improve and get these back in some sort of state that'll be great to view as bonsai? Interesting discussions, and I'll be frank and open. If that's going to interest you, keep watching. Hi, it's Xavier, and welcome to my bonsai retreat. And I won't lie to you, I have been putting this off a little bit because, well, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in myself, and I'm disappointed in what I'm seeing. But you know what? I'm disappointed because so many of you, when you saw me do this job, said what a fantastic video and what a fantastic lesson in Rafia. And I'll say now, the lesson was absolutely spot on. The tips I gave were absolutely spot on. I just wonder whether these great fat fingers of mine may have contributed to some issues we've got here. And clearly everyone can see the issue that's befallen this Juniper. Now, the video I'm talking about actually was released in October last year, 10 months ago, and it was entitled 3 Simple Rafia Tricks to Improve Your Bonsai. Well, tell me, I challenge you to say to me that that's not an improved bonsai. Oh dear. Well, look, let's look at this seriously, because these sort of things happen to us all. And in truth, I've done a lot of Rafia work, I've done a lot of wiring, and this is probably the first time I've had this sort of result happen. And I think I'm going to call out a big shout out to someone called Steve Tippin, who wrote a particular comment, who noticed that when I actually put this together, he was very, very concerned because the tree was wobbling about. And why was that? Well, simply his concern was that while I was doing all that work, and you look, it's quite wobbly there. There's actually some slugs there as well. So the roots haven't taken, which tells me that there is a bit of a root issue going on there. So perhaps the first thing that I may have done wrong was I didn't actually wire this thing down. So when I was doing all the Rafia and the hard bending, I kept pulling away, and maybe I've done more damage to the root system. Now, reviewing the video and looking back, and you can see it in the last 5 minutes, when I pulled this out of the pot, the root system was quite fine and quite ramified, so I had very, very few concerns. But truthfully, if I did this again, I would wire it down, and I can't help but stress this. I know some people are quite happy not to wire their trees down, but you know what? Where you've got the ability and the opportunity to do so, wire your trees down, because if these things keep moving, you have no idea what sort of damage you're doing to that tender and very, very necessary root system. Particular for a juniper, well, for any tree, but particular for a juniper that went under a lot of bending stress. So if you don't think it's a root issue, and I can't know that for sure without pulling it out, then why have we got 2/3 of the tree that have died and 1/3 that hasn't? Well, the easy thing to do there is to follow the branch and trunk structure and see whether there's a common denominator. And I think clearly, if we get in close, you can see where that is. So we'll follow that up, and then this is the first branch where it's all dead. And if we just turn it round, and if we look just in there, there is actually a big break there. Now, I think this has died simply because the break that happened there, and reviewing the video and that, it was actually already something that was there. But that break has basically killed that. So I know why that is. And that is actually quite an important point to discover. Not because, these clumsy fingers did some over bending or there was already a problem there, but by giving us a reason why an entire branch died off, it's likely that it wasn't a result of disease. We can't rule that out, and as I say, unless we look in the roots. And in fact, let's go back to this thing about water. One of the big and key indicators of problems can be simply overwatering your junipers, and they can lead to fungal issues or root rotting issues. Now, root rot could well contribute to death of branches on the juniper. So this is going to be because of the break, I have no doubt of that. So why then have we got this in? Because if we follow this up further, this branch here is absolutely fine. Everything on this branch is fine, and in fact, if we look in close, although there's not great yards of growth, there is some nice, fresh, healthy growth, foliar, but we've also got some needle growth, which is the juvenile shoots, which is the reaction that this tree will give to being in a bit of a state of distress. We've got some more here, and in fact lower down here we've got more juvenile pointy needles coming out, which is telling me the tree is still trying to put health and stuff out there and vigor, and this branch is probably okay. We've got a few browned off tips, but that's something that we come to expect with most of our junipers. It's part of the cleanup work we'd be doing right now. So we're all right there. We've actually got this all working nice and healthy, but then if we follow this further up, everything above this bend here, and again I know I did a lot of heavy twisting here, has also died off. Well, the other thing you could be looking at is spider mites or scale, and when I was having a look over the green material there, absolutely no signs of any white scale insects, and when I give it a good shake, or no obvious signs of spider mites or anything like that. So more and more I'm veering towards the fact that that was a broken branch, and that is probably over manipulation and being just a bit heavy-handed with the fist. And guess what? The only way anyone gets better in this hobby is by practicing, by applying Rafia, by using wire, unless you've decided that no, that's not the way for you, in which case, do you know what, don't worry. But this is the reality of bonsai, and to be honest, for anyone out there, especially beginners, if seeing this is enough to put you off, then maybe you want to, just maybe you want to pick another hobby. And I say that with a degree of seriousness, because if you want to get better, you need to practice. And I need to practice, and it's clear. Although, look, I'm really disappointed. I'm not going to hide it from you. I'm almost 90% sure that this is down to being just too heavy-handed with my wiring. And this is how you learn. So what exactly am I going to do about it? Not sure quite what, but the first thing we can do, let's be honest, is remove everything that's not living. So now what's going to happen is I'm now going to go through the process of removing the wire, and truthfully a lot of this I don't think is going to be reusable. And then once the Rafia is off, we'll have a look at this point just to reassure ourselves. In fact, I think we can probably get that away now and just find out how much. And look at this here, it's really quite clear. That's absolutely brown bread there, and that's probably about 3/4 of the branch right through. And I'm sure if I go back and listen what I did during that video, you'll probably find there's a point where I heard it crack and I hoped it would be alright, but no, that whole branch died because of that break there. Okay, well, as you can see, I'm just in the final stages of removing some of this Rafia. I've taken all the wire off, and I think the encouragement is, and I've even sort of thought back to what I said 10 minutes ago, and was probably being a bit hard with myself about the wiring. The reality is, if you walk around my retreat, or if you look back through my windows, don't do that. If you look back through my videos, you'll see that I wire a lot of trees, and actually I've got loads of trees with wire. I've got junipers that are covered in wire, and this is the only one out of 700 or whatever that have done this in 10 months. It's not something that's happened before, so do you know what? I'm not going to blame these. I'm going to blame that first one was a branch that was already pretty well broken, and the second one, well, yeah, probably was a bit too much manipulation, expecting too much from it at that time. Okay, so I've got all the Rafia off, and you know, the temptation to think, hey, let's get some wire on there, let's restyle it, let's try and do something with this. You know, already the brain is giving me loads of ideas, but now this is when you've got to go, stop. This tree needs one thing only. That is still green and healthy. What this needs now is to be left alone, ignored, and allowed to just continue to thrive and grow and put on a lot more strength and vigour. Now, I did mention right at the beginning that one of the things you do need to watch out for with junipers is that the soil doesn't get too damp, waterlogged, because that is going to lead to root rot and stuff. And I notice here they look like what I'd call little frog's eggs. Probably are frog's eggs actually, because we get frogs around here. I'm getting rid of any signs of obvious algae or anything like that. But the soil itself is definitely a nice free draining mix. Although there's some movement, it's not like the whole root mass started off. So clearly we've got some positive root reactions going on in here. Just get rid of all that algae. We don't want that there. Clean that all away. So I suppose what's my biggest message from that is, one, I don't hide anything in this channel. If things go wrong, you will get to hear about it, and we'll have a little dig around and find out if we can work out why. If it's my fault, I'll tell you that, and if it's just one of those things, I'll also mention that. Now, if you can't deal with that, if that's something that's going to put you off bonsai, and you think, well, I'm not going to wire, I'm not going to raffia, well, do you know what? That's up to you. For me, that's just a setback. One tree out of many that I've done raffia and wiring on. And do you know what? To prove it, I've got this Japanese larch that you will have seen me wire up after some advice that Peter Chan gave me of herons. And he said, take a branch that was pointing upwards in a Y and bring it right down. And when I saw him do it last year, I thought, no way, it's going to kill the branch, it's going to break. Well, do you know what? Raffia, the same technique applied, same wiring, and to be fair, the same amount of bending was applied to this larch, and now, wow, it's achieving all the sort of pad layers and levels that I'm going to be able to work with. And that's the reassurance that, do you know what, one-offs happen. Be prepared for them, be ready to move forward. You've got to have that degree of fortitude and perseverance if you want to really do well in this hobby and learn and get better. While we're at it, what a great segue, because this Japanese larch development is going to be a time-lapse project. I've already got a lot of footage from this year. If you want to see more of this, which really is turning into a prize tree, then you need to subscribe, all that sort of stuff, and you'll enjoy loads of content just like this. The good stuff, and also, well, the failures, because that happens. And anyone who says in their bonsai garden it doesn't is lying. Let's have a little spin and really just reassure ourselves that as far as I'm concerned, is still going to be a healthy and viable direction for the tree. It's interesting enough that we can do something with it. What, I don't know. We can do some more bending and wiring, but before we can do any of that, do you know what, let's leave it for a year, make sure it gets fed, make sure it doesn't get overwatered, and just have a look at this next year. But there was something that most definitely is my fault, and should we find out what I'm going to do about it? Because both this and indeed this Scots pine have had the wire on far too long, and it's not difficult to work that out when you have a look at the depth and the ridging that you've got from this. And why has that happened? Yeah, many of you said it before, Zab, you've got too many trees, and that's really a lot of the truth to it. But if I told you this is literally outside my back door, surely a load of you are going, how can you let that happen? And to be honest, you're totally right, I don't have a defence. I've got caught out this year because we had such a great start to the growing season in sort of March, April, May, that traditionally these things just don't seem to put on the growth that I expected. And honestly, trust me, I checked this probably about 2 months ago and there didn't seem to be any sign of wire bite, so I thought, you know what, I can leave it for a while. And it's just a reminder, wire, if you are going to use it, you have to regularly check. You've got to make it part of your weekly checks going around, and as soon as you start seeing it, because once it gets that deep, you're then working a defensive action. And let me first say to you, that isn't the big problem. Honestly, he says, trying to keep a smile on his face. Because, do you know how these heal up when you take that wire off? These Scots pine have a really gnarly bark, and this contorted pine, which, do you know what, is going to be part of an autumnal update on all Tony's Bonsai's trees that he gave me. But it's a perfect example of the gnarly bark. 2 years ago, I left the wire on too long, and we had some really deep cuts. And, you know, even here, there's still signs of where it's bitten in. But over time, if it's healthy, what happens is that tissue, the new tissue, expands and fills in the space. And if you get a gnarly bark, i.e. not smooth barked species, I mean, you wouldn't want to do this with the Japanese maple, but with these, well, we've seen actually scars and gnarls and that. They really don't look bad. They can actually make a tree. But the best thing is, I think I'm saying, is that they were all deep scars along there and along here, and they've practically filled in 2 years, to the point that here I can't even see the wire scarring that was on there. So do you know what? Wire scarring on your pines, on your junipers, on your junipers, don't worry. Get the wire off, let it recover. If it's healthy, let it thrive, let it push out new growth, and that will cause the expansion of existing tissue as it grows, and the wounds will heal over. And with this sort of species, a few more years, you won't even know it's there. And where you do know it's there, I think, like here, it's actually quite a bit of character, and certainly isn't a negative aspect of the tree. So if you're going to be careful with any of your trees that you wire, make sure it's your smooth bark species. Right, so going back to the other two, what am I going to do? Well, really, it's straightforward. I go through that very, very slow process of carefully removing the wire. Now, in this case, I use the pliers. You can do it with 2 sets, but I'll grab a bite, and then with my finger, I will just slowly rotate it off. Certainly with this smaller gauge, because this can be straightened and recycled and used again, so that I can quite happily go and mark another tree, which I've forgotten about. Now, it's quite fun seeing it go fast, but this is the tough bit, because this is where we have the problem with exposing. In here, close in, the cambium is going to get opened up, and that's probably the only risk you've got. He says, looking at that incredible scar, and I certainly won't be keeping this wire, but I don't know if you can see, definitely in there, the cambium is most definitely opened up. So I'm going to continue to get this off, and then we can all enjoy just how wonderful these wire scars look. Okay, well, it's all removed, and first thing, we've still got the shape of a bonsai, haven't we? So long these don't heal too badly, there's already a shape, which is what I wanted the wire for. Now, yes, I'm not going to hide behind it. I should have taken that wire off 2 months ago, and this would still have been in the pad shape and formation we've got here. But what's wonderful to see about this is, despite those unique scars, which, yeah, I've got the pads. Look at them. Look at this lovely, healthy green needle material and growth that I've got. Trust me, these will all fill in exactly as they've done on Tony's pine. It's going to take a couple of years. It means I'm going to have to let it to grow out, but that's part and parcel of it. Sometimes, well, you've seen it, let's be honest, with junipers, with Japanese white pines, when you get in close to have a look, they've all got wire bite in them. But Do you actually want that? No. The way to avoid it, watch your trees every week. Once that wire's been on for 6 weeks or more, start looking at, start observing, and then you won't necessarily create that, which, hey, will eventually be alright, but truthfully, we probably want to avoid it, don't we? Now, going down the line of mea culpa, I've got a big apology to Jason Hanrahan of the Bonsai Garden. He gifted me this wonderful black pine, and it already had the wire on it, and if you look back, I think I've had this for 18 months now, and I was quite happy to keep the wire on because it's something that Peter Chan does of herons, and it's a way of getting the chunkiness of a really corky black pine to really get into a big mass. But if you look here, there is a small problem which I'm going to have to overcome, and that's because the lower inch hasn't had the wire wrapped around it, so hasn't swelled. You've then got this great big 1.5 inches which has swelled a lot, and has created our age-old friend of a massive great lump or inverse taper. So what am I going to do about it? Well, first of all, I'm going to do exactly the same thing that I did with the other two. This will all fill in so long the rest of this is allowed to grow out. But let me show you what I'm going to do down there. I'm going to try and recreate it, but lower down, by putting wire on nice and tight, right down at that base. Now the other way of doing it, I've heard people talk about, is they hammer the base continually. This is just too young to do that too. But what I want to do, nice and tight, and I'm going to leave this on for, following actually the line of where the original wire has come off, and I'm going to leave it into, there we go, into there. Hopefully now, because I've got that wire low down, continue to let this flush out and grow, and I'll have every confidence that I'll be able to recreate the same terrible scarring that we've already got there. But overall, that's going to allow that to become a very, very gnarly, shapely and characterful trunk. And trust me, black pines, Scots pine, these sort of marks and scars can look really, really good. We don't deliberately go for it sometimes, but when they're there, don't panic. Really, don't panic. Apart from that, I mean, look at this. This is really, really healthy shoots and growth, and all I need to do is feed it and let it shoot out another 2 or 3 feet. And let's be honest, even with your smoother bark varieties, your Japanese maples, this was the first one that I used as a video about the dangers of wire bite. And I know someone laughed and said it was a bit of a clickbait title, but here you go, here's another one. When you look along that bark, as these things get older with the maples, they grey up. And you can see as you look in, on the right hand side here, I can see the faint line of where the wire bit in, but the greying up has gone right across. On this other branch here lower down, we haven't quite got the greying all the way yet, so you can see where the wire was, but in terms of depth, it's absolutely filled. The tissue has filled that right up flat, and as it grays over more and more, you're just not going to see it. So please, 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 although it's irritating and annoying, it's not the end of the world, and I think that's what I'll say to you now. It's not the end of the world. There's always hope. So yeah, the old Cobra has been doing pretty well this year. Now, of course, that's not to say that we become too casual about it. In fact, things like that are a great reminder, because it reminded me that I've got this Satsuki Azalea project where I wired up an informal upright into a Cascade design. Again, lovely, getting lots of green growth on it. This was actually a cutting from the parent plant, and this has really taken well. Got lots of new shoots growing on it, and look, I'm loving the way it's looking. But the key thing here is this is definitely the sort of species that you do want to be careful of, like your Ginkgo, your Azalea. You don't really want to be marking these. You mark these, you'll probably find the marks will be there for a very long time, and these have got a very, very smooth, soft bark on them. You're looking forward to seeing this update in 2026 and discussion more about whether it's the right idea to put it on the rock. And talking of Azalea, I couldn't help it. This, my little dwarf Azalea, got for £2 8 years ago at a bargain basement nursery. Look at all those flower buds ready to open up. In spring 2026, that'll be worth watching. But look at this, I put it into a bigger pot because I wanted it to try and rejuvenate and get healthy, and wow, it looks absolutely incredible. And dare I say it, I think that actually looks like a marmade bonsai. I think that's pretty good stuff. Anyway, I've got to go around, and this one, you see, it's weird. The wire hasn't been nearly as vicious on this one, yet they were both wired at the same time. Well, okay, maybe there's a bit of wire there. I think this is looking good. It's got a lot more older needles, which I'm going to remove, and again, this isn't all about pine, but now, all those yellowing needles, get rid of them. If they can pull away with your fingers, then pull them off the tree. If you have to tug too hard, then leave them be. So you leave me to get all the wire off that and have a think about what's going to happen to that next. I think it's going to be a beautiful literati, and overall, don't be down about it. These things happen in bonsai. If you're not able to take the knocks, then probably another hobby might be better. But seriously, there's always a way forward, and if you don't make mistakes, you don't learn. And I think ultimately that's the message I want to put across. 25 years and I'm still making the same blunders with wire. And hey, I'll tell you what, let YouTube pick the video that you would most like to see next. Apart from that, happy bonsai and God bless. Cheers.